Just 6 races left in the 2024 Ginetta Junior Championship, and 3 of them will take place this weekend on the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit, a venue that we've already raced at once this year. It produced 3 excellent encounters earlier on in the season, and we're expecting exactly the same now, albeit in slightly damp and greasy conditions, at least for this first one of the weekend, with a full grid of the Ginetta G40 Juniors lined up and set to do battle at a pivotal moment in the 2024 Championship race. As I said, 6 races to go, not an enormous margin between the top 2 or 3 in the championship, but what happens today and tomorrow could really shape the outcome of the title on the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit in a few weeks' time. And it has been one of those championships that's very much sort of ebbed and flowed through the season, with one driver having a good run of results and then another driver coming up to challenge. Of late, it's really been Jeff Hall who has done a lot of the big point scoring. Not a lot of race wins, actually, in the last couple of events. In fact, in the last 6 races, only 1 race victory, but he's been consistently notching up those podium and top 5 finishes, and that means that he arrives here at Donington Park in a good position in the championship. However, it's one of his big rivals, Chase Fernandez, for our racing, his our racing teammate, actually, who has nabbed pole position here today. He will have Jeff Hall, the points leader, alongside, with Colin Cronin, an impressive 3rd on the grid, and Henry Jocelyn lining up alongside him on row 2. Isaac Phelps and Marcus Sater are together on row number 3. The 4th row for Archie Clark and Ruben Dan, and then down on row 5 for Alfie Slater and Tom Ingram Hill. 6th row of the grid, Felix Livesey and Jude Peters. On row number 7, we have got the next 2 cars, Torrin Byrne and Jack Robinson. And you have to go all the way down to the 8th row of the grid to find the man 2nd placed in the championship, Charlie Hart. The Elite Motorsport driver's had a brilliant season, finally got his first win last time at Silverstone, but qualifying this morning did not go his way. He's got James Ellis for company on row 8. Row 9 is shared by Ethan Carney and Harry Moss, and Holly Mile will bring up the rear of the 19-car grid. So, championship-wise then, it is 509 points. This all, by the way, before drop scores. So this picture will change when we get to Brands Hatch and the drop scores start to be fully calculated. But Jeff Hall has this 49-point lead over Charlie Hart, with Chase Fernandez at the moment 3rd in the championship. 6 wins for Jeff Hall, 5 for Fernandez, just the 1 for Charlie Hart. So you might be wondering how he's got himself properly into the championship picture. Well, again, consistency has been key. Just the 1 win, but 9 other podium finishes through the 19 races that we've had so far. So more than half of the season Charlie Hart has spent on the podium, and at long last got that first victory in the final race of the weekend on the Silverstone National Circuit last time, one of a couple of events this year not to take place as part of the British GT package. And, it was a good weekend for Charlie all round, but certainly culminating in that victory in race 3. He'll be hoping now that would have been hoping that would propel him on to even bigger and better things through the rest of the year. But you can just see Charlie Hart, the grey and black number 50 car, top of shot there, pulling into 50th spot on the grid. Needs to move forward, given the fact that his 2 big championship rivals are both starting together on the front row of the grid. So it will be a 20-minute race then. Mixed conditions here at Donington Park today. It's very grey, it's very humid. The track just isn't really drying out, despite the fact it hasn't rained properly for a good few hours. So tricky conditions will greet the drivers as they head towards Redgate Corner in a few moments' time. The red lights go out, and is it a good start made by the pole sitter? It's an okay start, I think, but it looks to me like Jeff Hall will be at least alongside him as they head for Redgate Corner for the first time. In fact, Jeff Hall at the moment, the Lone Ranger on the outside line. Now Henry Jocelyn goes out there with him as they all try to find the grippiest part of the racetrack. It's a fairly orderly run through Redgate Corner for the time being. Charlie Hart, I can see in the background, already trying to move his way to the front. There he goes, look, at the inside of the number 4 machine of James Ellis, and Charlie needs now to be making rapid progress when everyone's bunched together in the early stages. It is Fernandez who leads though, Jeff Hall in 2nd position, Colin Cronin. What a great qualifying effort that was from Colin earlier on this morning, looking for his first podium finish of the year, let alone first race victory, and he's got a brilliant opportunity here this afternoon to do that. Towards McLean's Corner we go then for the first time. Jocelyn there in 4th position. Jocelyn is 4th in the championship, some way back, but dropped scores I think will be his friend, and that will likely bring him a little bit closer to the sharp end of the points table when we get to Brands Hatch next time out, especially if he can notch up some good results here this weekend. Out onto the back straight we go then. Slipstream starts to take effect. Often the first lap of a Ginetta Junior race is the least eventful lap of a Ginetta Junior race. These races tend to build, don't they? There is a move there, though, for fourth position. That was Isaac Phelps moving up ahead of Henry Jocelyn. So Phelps then up into fourth position. Isaac Phelps, who started off the season really well. He's had a couple of race victories in the first part of the season. Only sixth in the points, though, arriving here at Donington Park. He will now chase after the leading three if he can. He's bringing with him Marcus Sater, another driver to have tasted victory a couple of times this year. He too slips past Henry Jocelyn, so Jocelyn, for whatever reason, struggling a little bit here in the early stages. Makes his way up the hill then towards Goddard, this tight, very steeply downhill hairpin. Someone's on the grass further back. That was the 45 car, I think that was, wasn't it, of Jack Robinson. Getting elbowed out, and look, Charlie Hart just not really making the progress. In fact, the number 4 car that he was battling with at the first corner, James Ellis, is back ahead of him now. So Charlie Hart took the start in 15th place. Where is he at the end of lap 1? He is only 14th, so 1 place gain then for Charlie Hart, but he needed more than that, really. Jocelyn continuing to go backwards and now getting into it with the number 43 of Archie Clark. That was a little bit of contact at Redgate corner, loses him momentum. That brings Slater now, I think that is, up alongside as well. And then you've got the yellow and black Elite Motorsport car of Ruben Dan in behind. So I wonder what's going on with Henry Jocelyn. He is plummeting down the order. Look, there goes Ruben Dan through. Is there damage? Is there a problem? He's certainly not got a lot of rear end grip, but someone else has got it far worse. They're into the gravel, and that was the 27 of Slater. So Alfie Slater then off the road at the old hairpin, digs his way, just about keeps it pointing in vaguely the right direction, and will rejoin safely, albeit pretty much at the back of the field. So he will drop out of what was 7th place at the time. Lead 2, though, getting away now. We've seen a lot of this through the second half of the year since Chase Fernandez made the move over to R Racing earlier on in the season. He really has worked very well with his teammates, particularly Ethan Jeff Hall. The gloves come off usually about 2/3 race distance, but they have, on several occasions of late, worked together through the first part of the race to pull away from the rest of the field and then settle it between themselves later on. That seems to be the game plan now, doesn't it? Jeff Hall content at the moment, anyway, to sit behind Chase Fernandez, although Chase maybe hasn't got the memo because he pulls to the inside to defend, and to the outside line will now challenge the championship leader. Now it's a dry racing line, the inside is a little bit damp and greasy, but Fernandez seems to find enough grip, gets into the corner, gets out of the corner, crucially still in front. But really great teamwork, ironically, there between the two of them, and again Chase Fernandez feeling the need to defend before drifting back over onto the racing line into the Goddard's hairpin. So they may have lost a little bit of time through that bit of shuffling down the hill. Certainly Colin Cronin and Isaac Phelps are not that far back. Phelps looks quick though, doesn't he? Isaac Phelps closing in pretty rapidly on Cronin. Then you've got Sater in 5th, Slater 6th. Jocelyn has kind of settled into 7th place now, as again there is a challenge into Redgate corner by Ethan Jeff Hall. So I take everything back that I just said about these two working well as a team. Clearly the gloves are off now. It's the business end of the championship. 6 races left to settle in, and Chase Fernandez, before the drop scores anyway, has 56 points to try and overcome against his teammate. You would forgive, I suppose, wouldn't you really, Ethan Jeff Hall, for just being content to settle for second, honestly. If he worked with Fernandez, they pulled away from the field, he could come home second and still retain a very sizable championship advantage. It's a 5-point difference, remember, between winning a race, 35 points, and second place, which is worth 30 points, plus the bonus point for the fastest lap, which at the moment belongs to the race leader, Chase Fernandez. So that does incentivise the second place driver to have a bit of a go. There, by the way, are the points, were the points. We might check in on those again at the end of the race, see if they've been updated. But as it stands, Ethan Jeff Hall will be pretty satisfied, I think, with how this race is going. To Poppy's corner they go there. You can see a 3-way fight for third starting to develop now. I wonder how long Isaac Phelps and Marcus Sater will be content to sit behind Colin Cronin. They haven't really raced against Colin a lot this year. And whilst Colin is clearly capable of running at front-running pace, he is just losing touch with the leading 2. You have to feel the 2 behind him might start to feel impatient before much longer. Great run through the Fogarty S's there for Ethan Jeff Hall, though, and here now comes the challenge. Does it? Maybe. Certainly a defensive line taken there by the third place man. Phelps tries to jink back to the inside, does jink back to the inside, but does he have the momentum mid-corner to make the move stick? No, he doesn't. So Colin Cronin holding on to that third place for now. But I think he saw that bit of a mistake there from Jeff Hall, did Isaac Phelps. Decided he wanted to get in on the action. So too does Sater, though, and that was a lovely move up the inside into the Goddard's hairpin. Phelps didn't even attempt to defend it. Tries to get the switch back on the exit, but the momentum should be there with Marcus Sater. They trade a bit of paint, a puff of white tyre smoke. They're still leaning on each other slightly, as Sater is convinced that he has cleared the front of the 35 car, whereas Isaac Phelps rather disagrees. But Sater does now make fourth place his own, and in doing so sets the fastest lap of the race as well. So Marcus Sater now has that bonus point. Sater, though, that a little bit further back in the championship standings. The significance, though, is he's taken it away from Chase Fernandez, who continues to lead the race once again now by less than a G40's length at the bottom of the hill. Both of them sliding their way into the right-hander at the old hairpin. Careful of track limits on the exit. If you go beyond that red and white painted curb, you're going to find yourself in trouble with the stewards. Jack Robinson, by the way, I can tell you, has been in and now out of the pit lane, albeit one lap down. So he has had, I guess, a load of grass removed from the grille, because I think it was, it wasn't Jack that went off the old hairpin, was it? So I'm not sure what his drama's been. It was Alfie Slater that went off the old hairpin. He's still going in 15th place. Now, what of Charlie Hart, I hear you ask? He was 11th at the beginning of the lap, just ahead of Tom Ingram Hill, but 1.2 seconds behind the next pair of cars ahead, Livesey and Peters. So Charlie Hart not marching through the order, is he? Here, though, comes another challenge from Ethan Jeff Hall to the outside into the Fogarty S's. That's a brave move to try and make. They touch wing mirrors side by side through the chicane, and they make contact, and around they will both go. Right in front of the field, the top two in the championship. Fernandez is out. Ethan Jeff Hall continues. And how pivotal a moment could that prove to be when we get to the Brands Hatch finale? Colin Cronin now leads the race. This is Colin Cronin, who's never had a podium in the Ginetta Junior Championship, and he's been handed the race victory on a platter. Marcus Sater and Isaac Phelps are banging doors behind him. And where did Ethan Jeff Hall come out of that? About 7th, I think, as they head for the Goddard's hairpin. Well, I thought at the time that was a very punchy move to be making by Ethan Jeff Hall around the outside into the chicane. It was always likely to end in contact, and it did. But for him, luckily, I suppose, it's Fernandez who's ended up out of the race. Now, will that require a safety car? You have to imagine it might do. Colin Cronin probably wouldn't say no to the appearance of a safety car, would he? Because he's really having to defend from Phelps and Sater into Redgate corner. As they accelerate off the turn, Colin Cronin is now faced with the biggest challenge of his admittedly fairly short racing career so far, to try and hang on from two proven race winners in the category to claim his first win. He'll be helped by the fact that those two seem intent on battling each other, don't they? There is a furious Chase Fernandez from the lead to a non-finish in a heartbeat, and that could be, as I said, a real turning point in the championship. Yellow flags at the very least, you imagine, will be out at the chicane. They might try to cover it with a live snatch, in which case the racing will continue. And what a race we've got now at the front of the field, side by side again for second place. Phelps on the inside, Sater trying to go right round the outside of McLean's. That can work, but you really require the driver on the inside to leave you some space, which Phelps didn't really. And now the safety car is scrambled, so they'll have to get in line anyway. And I reckon it was just about Isaac Phelps ahead at the time of the safety car, so Colin Cronin won't be best pleased. He'd actually pulled out a little bit of a lead there, but probably grateful still of the opportunity to catch his breath. There, though, is Chase Fernandez. Well, wouldn't say championship hopes are gone, necessarily, because Fernandez hasn't had a non-finish yet this year, I think I'm right in saying. So he will count this as a dropped score, but he'll gain back whatever his highest dropped score was earlier in the season, which I think off the top of my head is only going to be about 10 or 12 points. Here's the replay then. So Ethan Jeff Hall has the slipstream. The inside's taken by Fernandez, so he goes down the outside. He's much later on the brakes. Look at the ground he gains in the braking zone. There's a tiny touch, but that, I don't think, unsettled the car. He's just on the wet side of the road and had to avoid the tyre stack that was on the inside of the corner. That's why he sort of came careering back into the road and into the side of Chase Fernandez. Here's the other angle. You can see he's on a collision course with that tyre stack. The only option, really, at that point is to turn left. The trouble is his teammate is in his path, and around they will both go. And that chicane is so often a trouble spot on this track, and we've just seen why. You can't really, in these conditions, easily go side by side through there. The seas part beautifully for Colin Cronin. And Marcus Sater had ideas of getting up the inside of him as well, going into the Melbourne hairpin. They, I think, touched slightly going down the hill. But that is the super slow-mo replay that our racing will not want on their end-of-season highlights reel. Top two drivers in the championship colliding, and one of them ending up out of the race. So, The order then, Cronin leads the way, Phelps second, Sater third, then it's Clark and Ruben Dan into the top 5 as well, with Henry Joslin 6th, Ethan Jeff Hall 7th after that spin, 8th for Livesey, 9th for Peters, and Charlie Hart now into the top 10. So Charlie is the one that this benefits, really, because Charlie Hart suddenly is only a few positions behind Ethan Jeff Hall. Chase Fernandez is out of the race altogether. Henry Joslin's not having a great run in this one either, so suddenly there is a chance, isn't there, that Charlie Hart could score at least not a lot fewer points than his championship rivals, and significantly more points than Chase Fernandez is going to. So we need to keep an eye on him at the restart. He also, of course, will catch now Felix Livesey and Jude Peters, the 2 drivers who he was trying to catch earlier on. There goes Charlie, car number 50, through shot. And at the back of the field, of course, now we've got the hastily repaired number 45 car as well, which had been in the pit lane of Jack Robinson. And more with Henry Joslin. I wonder what's going on with Henry, because he just hasn't been at the races so far in this one, has he? Joslin, remember, started 4th on the grid, proceeded immediately to slip outside of the top half dozen. In fact, he was 8th at the time of the safety car, really, or at the time of the collision between the our racing teammates. And Joslin, another of those drivers who perhaps was in position there to gain some points back, needs to try and find an extra gear now when we restart the race, which will be shortly because the lights were out on the safety car. So good work by the marshals down at the chicane. Those marshals who've been posted at the chicane before, I'm sure, will be well versed in the best way to get a racing car out of the gravel trap. And I think Fernandez, his car is well out of harm's way, so we should be able to get the race back underway. Colin Cronin, 7.5 minutes. Can he do it? Can he defend this race lead? Colin, for context, 14th in the championship at the moment. I'm not even convinced he's had a top 5 finish, and you can tell he's not that experienced at being in the lead of the race, because that wasn't the best restart, was it? Got a bit sideways through the Goddard's hairpin. And as they accelerate across the line, immediately Isaac Phelps will be picking up that slipstream and thinking about maybe a move into Redgate corner. Cronin doesn't really know whether to defend or not, eventually chooses not to, and that was the right decision because Phelps wasn't ultimately close enough to launch a challenge, and actually doesn't have a great run through Redgate corner, so Cronin can breathe easy for now. Where does the first move come from, though? Perhaps from further back in the pack. Keep your eyes trained on the likes of Joslin and the recovering Ethan Jeff Hall. Those two, remember, absolutely together. You can see them in the background. Look, Ethan Jeff Hall on the tail of the white, orange and blue car. That is the battle for 6th position. And Ethan Jeff Hall will not be counting himself out of a chance of a podium finish here, that is for sure. This is a circuit at which you can overtake if you're brave. And Ethan Jeff Hall proved he was brave with that attempted move on Chase Fernandez. It didn't end well, but he proved that even with this handy championship lead, he's not going to back out of those opportunities. He's up the inside into McLean's corner, and in the end gets past Henry Joslin pretty quickly. Joslin's out over the curb and just doesn't look happy in these conditions, does he, for whatever reason. So through goes Ethan Jeff Hall, that's 6th position now. But crucially, he did that relatively quickly before the leaders got away. Now that is Isaac Phelps on the grass, and that will give Colin Cronin a bit of breathing room, and also gives Marcus Sater an opportunity to go to the outside. Now this didn't end well for Ethan Jeff Hall and Chase Fernandez, but the move is made before they get to the corner. That was really good stuff on the brakes, and Marcus Sater through into 2nd position. I suspect maybe Isaac Phelps backed out of that a little bit, didn't want to risk a repeat of that contact we just saw at that point on the circuit. Slots into 3rd position. Ruben Dan now up the inside of Archie Clark for 4th. He's sideways and gets into Phelps. No, around goes Phelps, and that's another championship frontrunner in trouble. There is carnage behind as they scatter to avoid. Ruben Dan will surely have to pit, and that was all because he went to the inside of the road. It's wetter on the inside, it's a tighter line anyway, couldn't get the car stopped, and he clattered in to the man who was 2nd place at the start of the lap. And yet more drama then in this first Ginetta Junior race of the weekend. What does that mean for the order then? Sater, of course, 2nd, and Ethan Jeff Hall's in 3rd. Ethan Jeff Hall came through that, back in a podium place. He's got a bit of damage to the front of the car from his tangle with Fernandez, but Ethan Jeff Hall, the championship leader, is somehow miraculously back into a top 3 position. You've got Joslin in 4th, it's Clark in 5th, and Charlie Hart also picked his way through that nicely into 6th. More elbows out stuff going on further back there. Who's this getting into it through Hollywood? It's the number 4 car of James Ellis up the inside, actually, of the number 5 of Tom Ingram Hill. And through will come the 27. That's Slater. Slater, who was in the gravel down here at the Old Hairpin early in the race, is picking up a few more positions now. That, I reckon, will put him 9th position as they accelerate out of the Old Hairpin with just under 4.5 minutes to go. Cronin's lead then, best part of 0.8 of a second at the start of the lap. It's not anymore though. Marcus Sater's closing in on him as they head up through McLean's corner. So Cronin still hasn't got this win in the bag yet, far from it. And if they start battling, do not count out this man from catching up and challenging for a race victory. He'll be fired up now after what happened earlier on. And if he sees a chance to challenge for victory, it seems fairly likely that he will go for it. There are the leaders then. Gap coming down in the first sector by 1/10.5, in the second sector by 2.5 tenths nearly. And within slipstreaming range now, that last few car lengths will disappear very quickly. A good run through the chicane there from Sater. Cronin is going to have to defend, surely, into the Melbourne hairpin. But Sater gives him the bumper and doesn't try to overtake. That was interesting. Marcus Sater definitely had the momentum there to pull alongside if he wanted to, and he chose not to. There, by the way, is Isaac Phelps' car. It's far enough off the road that I don't think we'll need a safety car. But another potential race winner out of the race before three-quarter race distance. That was a really intriguing moment there, though. Why did Marcus Sater... Oh, of course, there was a yellow flag down at the Melbourne hairpin. That, I suppose, is why he chose not to make the overtake, which is obvious when you think about it. So, yeah, I don't think this is a truce between the two of them. I think Marcus just realised the yellow flags were out. Car on the grass further back. Felix Livesey, that was, I think, the number 31. Got Jude Peters up into 7th place as well. Jude started deep in the field, I seem to remember. Yes, 12th on the grid, and up into 7th place after some of the carnage that's happened around him. Out of Redgate corner then, 3 minutes to go, so 2 more laps remain in this one. 2 more laps for Colin Cronin to withstand the pressure, not buckle under that pressure and make a mistake, and hang on for that first win in the championship. And what a race to do it in as well. Jeff Hall there slithers through in 3rd. Jocelyn, I think, will be pretty grateful if you told him a few minutes ago he'd be running in 4th on the penultimate lap of the race. Archie Clark right behind him as well. Charlie Hart, 6th position, but was slower than the group of cars ahead of him on the previous lap. So barring more drama up the road, I don't think he's likely to gain any more places from this race. Ethan Jeff Hall, by the way, has stolen the fastest lap back as well, so that's the bonus point heading back to the championship leader. It's all just sort of meant to be, isn't it, in this race for Ethan? It's felt a bit like that in the last few rounds as well. He's dodged a few bullets at Silverstone and at Snetterton the round before. Certainly at Silverstone, he found himself in the thick of some of the action, managed to get through it all unscathed, relatively. With an extended championship lead. Now, Colin Cronin does not enjoy a particularly extensive race lead. That is less than a car's length between them. Is there still a yellow flag at the bottom of the hill? Can't see from this angle. We'll tell in a minute if Sater jinks to the inside line. Yes, there was still a yellow flag. And if that yellow flag stays there till the checkered flag, that's a big relief for Colin Cronin, because that's probably the best overtaking opportunity on the circuit, and it's out of bounds. Marcus Sater can't make the move down at Melbourne if that yellow flag is still out on the last lap. So this is also about to be further complicated, I think, by the arrival of Ethan Jeff Hall, because Ethan's been putting in some personal best sectors on this lap. How far back is Ethan? If he's within a second or so, he'll pick up a whiff of a slipstream. He is within a second of them. It's 1.3 seconds that covers the top 3. He is 9/10 adrift of Marcus Sater in 2nd position. If he arrives on the tail of Marcus Sater, well, what does Marcus do? Their teammates, remember, but it's usually everyone for themselves in Ginetta Juniors. If he starts to defend, that takes the pressure off Cronin and maybe hands the victory to the number 75 car. Down the Craner curves for the final time. You're on board with Henry Jocelyn here in 4th position. He is really now going to have to just play a very distant part in this battle. He's got a grandstand view of it, but won't likely take any part in it. Way wide goes Cronin, abusing track limits on the final lap of the race at the old hairpin. The slipstream will bring them back together by the time they arrive at McLean's, but I don't think Sater's close enough to challenge, or is he? Thinks about it. Cronin defends the inside line. This is going to be the longest half a lap of Colin Cronin's life. Can he keep Sater at bay? If he defends for another corner, then Jeff Hall will be there, and he is defending, heading into Coppice corner through the right-hander. Don't drift out too wide. Cover the inside line. Yes, nicely done. Perfectly positions the car there, Colin Cronin, and that will really be frustrating Marcus Sater. All of his momentum mid-corner lost as they head onto the back straight for the final time. Does Colin defend the inside? Yes, he does. That puts him on the wet side of the road, though. And here comes Sater to the outside. He's late on the brakes. We've seen this before. They touch through the gravel, goes Sater. And watch for Ethan Jeff Hall. He may have a run on the pair of them as they head down the hill. Sater won't give the lead back. That is for sure. He'll argue that after the race that he was forced off the road, but this could open the door beautifully for the championship leader. No, he backs out of it. Sensible stuff from Ethan Jeff Hall. It is Sater with the lead as they turn through the Melbourne hairpin for the final time. And Colin Cronin will have to resort out to a last corner lunge now if he's going to claim that maiden victory in this race, and I don't think that option's on the table. He's busy defending his second place. Remember, he's still after that first podium, and he's battling now with the championship leader, who goes to the outside through Goddard's, will probably have momentum off the corner but runs out of grip. It's going to be a win for Marcus Sater. Sater claiming his third victory of 2024, second for Cronin, a maiden podium, and it's almost a dead heat for third. It's Ethan Jeff Hall who just by a nose gets the better of Henry Jocelyn in fourth, and Archie Clark completes the top five. Charlie Hart did get sixth place in the end, whilst further back, that's a bit of a lively battle. James Ellis out on the grass, banging doors with Harry Moss, and it's Ellis who gets 12th place over Harry Moss by 78 thousandths of a second. So good battle between the two of them heading to the checkered flag, but Marcus Sater, well, there may be a discussion after the race because he did cut the chicane, but he will argue that he was forced off the road and didn't want to repeat the collision that we saw before from Ethan Jeff Hall and Chase Fernandez. But on the road at least, it is Marcus Sater who claims his third win of the season and another trophy added to the R Racing collection. Colin Cronin, maiden podium. He'll be gutted he didn't win, but that was still a fabulous result that for Colin, his first appearance in the top three. The championship leader, Ethan Jeff Hall, will be happy with third, with Henry Jocelyn, Archie Clark and Charlie Hart completing the top half dozen. Then it was Jude Peters, Alfie Slater, Tom Ingram Hill and Ethan Carney in 10th position. Felix Livesey 11th, James Ellis 12th, Harry Moss 13th. Those two side by side on the line, with Holly Mile and Torrin Byrne next. Then it was Jack Robinson a lap down after a visit to the pit lane. Ruben Dan and Isaac Phelps retired after that collision at the Melbourne Hairpin. And Chase Fernandez out after contact with the championship leader. Well, it was a dramatic opening race of the weekend for the Ginetta Junior Championship that saw two of the heavy hitters in the title race sharing the front row. Chase Fernandez had pole position. Ethan Jeff Hall, though, wanted to try and assert his authority on the race from the get-go, but couldn't get through into Redgate Corner. Thought they might work together in the early stages of the race. That seemed to be the case for a lap or so, but eventually battle was well and truly joined between the two of them, whilst further back Alfie Slater got it all wrong down at the old hairpin and skated through the gravel trap. Jack Robinson also had a visit to the pit lane. This is why collision with Torrin Byrne up at the top of the hairpin at Goddard's. This, though, the big moments of the race. Chase Fernandez and Ethan Jeff Hall clashing whilst battling for the lead at the chicane. Ethan able to continue, but Fernandez was beached in the gravel trap. Brought about a safety car period, after which Colin Cronin found himself in the lead, looking for his first win in the championship. There was carnage further back, though. Isaac Phelps was drilled by Ruben Dan at the Melbourne Hairpin, and both of them were out of the race. Then on the final lap, Marcus Sater went round the outside of the race leader at the chicane, cut through the chicane, and held on to lead at the checkered flag, with Cronin claiming his maiden podium in the championship.